Good afternoon. Welcome to this event by Olmara Education for professional development for teachers. I welcome you and thank you for keeping this interest to move forward. We are living difficult times, but the good side, there is always a good side, even of bad things like this pandemics that we're living. But the fact that we are at home, we don't have to move to schools and all that, give us the possibility to attend events such as this, in which we can improve our.
Hello, everyone. Can you please confirm you hear me? Could you please put your hands up, thumbs up or thumbs up on the reaction? You can hear me? Great, great. Uh, awesome, awesome. So very welcome. My name is Olga Gutwasi, and Enrique was here to introduce me to you, but since something just went wrong, I mean, we are teachers and we can manage this. Well, something about me, I know that you are all muted for some reason. Um, I'm not really into having teachers muted. Uh, we love talking. So, but this is the decision that they made. So, um, well, I see Sylvia, I see some of you that are, I'm very familiar with. So what I can say about me is that I've been a teacher for the past 18 years. Um, I'm currently working as a teacher. I teach language and literature. It's not English as a second language. It's actually English as a first language. So at Euro American College, and if I have to say this, I hold a master's degree on education, on teaching English as a foreign and second language. So my entire life I've been teaching, even though I've been through many different fields in the education. I've been a teacher, a coordinator, um, helper, assistant, and everything. So I'm very happy to have you here. From time to time, I need you to just show me your thumbs up so I feel that I'm not talking to myself in a monologue, as a confirmation that you can clearly hear me. Can you do that for me? Thank you, Luisa. Thank you, Silvia. Silvita. Okay, so our workshop today, or our talk, is on assessment, a very vital component of the teaching process. We all know that teaching is a huge, complex process, and within the situation and the context given, assessment comes to take a role of a queen. How can we assess fairly with validation and reliability um, to our students? How if you are like me, are used to have like classes, sessions with sometimes the vast majority of your students with these black squares in just names. For some reason, students hide themselves. They don't want to show themselves. They don't want to expose themselves, and it's weird. It's weird, but even in these circumstances, we have to assess. So assessment then, as I just said, is a very complicated issue in the process. Assessment, unlikely it might be thought or said, is not the end of the process. It's not the beginning of the process. Assessment should be all through the process. So let me share my screen. Here we go. I have in the chat box Yes, you're listening. Thank you very much. That it's uh, I like when you're confirm that you're listening. So today our talk is assessment for as and of learning. We need to understand as part of our teachers' professional development these three moments or aspects of assessment. We must have, like, if you have it already clear, great. If you don't have these three concepts very clarified yet, today we will. Uh, I like your contributions. If you can maybe type some suggestions, ideas on the chat box. We have assessment for learning, assessment as learning, and assessment of learning. I'd like to start this um, talk. I'd like to say this interaction, but it's not an interaction, unfortunately, with this thought, with this picture. I can't ask anyone to read it out loud, so I will, but I want you to read it and reflect on this. This is exactly as the way we should start with our students. We shouldn't give them the complete idea, or we shouldn't tell them what the subject or the topic is about. We should give them some guidance or lead them to reflection. So one of the boys says, I taught Stripe, the dog, how to whistle. So the boy's friend says, I don't hear him whistling. I said, I taught him. I didn't say he'll learn it. So there's a difference between teaching and learning. How can we make sure that what we teach is actually learned, is actually intaken? How teachers make sure that all our efforts, all our sacrifices, all the time spent in planning, in grading, in marking, are if all this time is effective for learners, not for us, for learners. So again, teaching not necessarily means learning. And sometimes it's not the teacher's fault. I mean, it's not us. It's a combination of factors. So I'll present to you some um, moments for assessment or testing part of assessment. And you have to think of when the situations may perhaps take place. The first situation, a course director is expecting an intake of 100 students. They will all sit a test in the first morning. Second situation, a teacher has a new class in the school lesson. She decides to give the class a short, brief test. Third situation, a teacher has 50 hours of 100-hour courses in the half. I'm sorry for the misspelling there. So this teacher decides to give a test to the class. And the fourth and final situation, a class is very near the end of the course. We're almost over, like now, we're in November, or we finish. Most of us, the vast majority of us, will be done by December, first or second week. So in this penultimate lesson, they will have a test. In which of these situations we place assessment for learning, as learning, and of learning? We don't need to be right since the beginning. We are in the process of understanding. But if you have an idea, that'd be nice if you can type it on the chat box. So I'll give you like 30, 20 seconds and see if you can type your insights on situation one, assessment for learning, as learning, of learning, and exactly the same pattern for the rest. Can I see some of your comments? just just a leap of faith. Let's take a step forward and type something. Can I see it in the chat? No, nobody's typing. Let me see. Well, yeah, I think I have. No. Some time for you to think, and then I love to read your ideas. And from, if you can show me your thumbs up or your hands up so I know that you're listening, please. Awesome. Thank you, Katya. Thank you. I don't know, I'm not sure if the others are also listening to me, but I guess they are. So excellent. Number one could be assessment as learning. Thank you, Shai. Thank you very much. Perfect. It might be assessment as learning. It's expecting an intake, new students. We're talking about diagnostic test to see how they are. In the second, it's they are already in the class, already taking their lessons, and the teacher just needs to see how they're doing. But it's the teacher who will learn. Yes. Okay. So let's continue. Thank you for sharing. We learn about the students. Completely right. So here we go. When we do assessment for learning, this is just a brief summary. The assessment, as being said in the chart box, is conveyed by teachers. And the purpose of this assessment for learning is to determine what to do next. Is looking forward. Is for learning. I want my students to be assessed for them to learn. I'm not analyzing what they have learned so far. I need to analyze. I need to gather information and data to see how can I better use this information for the future. It's also to provide descriptive feedback to students, what they are doing well, what they are doing so, what they need to reinforce, what they are doing excellent, what they really need support on. Okay. Assessment as learning, as means in progress, ongoing, always, since day one, day two, is done, conducted, conveyed by the student. It's a self-reflection. Is to determine, the purpose is not to determine what to do next, but it's to determine what students in my own learning, in my own process, what abilities, what skills, what strategies I need to acquire or reinforce or use. It's also to provide descriptive feedback to peers. So that's when we do peer assessment, self-assessment. And of course, the goal is to become reflexive, self-monitoring learner, independent learner, responsible for our own learning, and so on. So all this independency, autonomy that we have already learned or at least heard somewhere else. Assessment of learning, again, is conducted by the teacher, is to determine the student's level. It's at the end of the year, maybe at the half of the year, and it's to determine how much the students have learned. We need evidence of their learning either in content or in skills. So the capacities, again, now we have capacities, skills, abilities, and all this mixture of wording that we are very familiar with. I don't know if I can't ask questions, but all right. Personalization then is assessment as learning. We focus on the students, teachers develop capacities to create independent learners. We set goals, we monitor progress, we reflect on the learner, on how the learner is doing, we respect these multiple intelligences and so on. When we talk about differentiation, it's assessment for learning. It's the future, is how to, again, the personalization, differentiation, individualization are not separated terms. They all need to be blended at some point. Again, nothing is completely white, nothing is completely black. And as teachers, we always should avoid black and white statements. So sometimes we grab something from here and something from there, and we come up with a great and very genuine idea. But the idea is to have clear what each of these different assessment moments means. So then assessment of learning is summative. Assessment is grade-based and involves time-based testing. So we give our students a test with 10 questions in a 45-minute period, and they have to answer. And if they only answer 5 questions, we know that they are 50% in, and they are in progress. If they answer 70%, they are almost there. If they answer 100%, they have achieved their goals. If they only answer 10% of the questions, well, they are in need of improvement. I wish I could hear your questions, but at the end we'll have some time for questions. So what is language in terms of our profession, on our education, on our field of education? What is language assessment? Basically, and in simple, is a way of judging students' progress. We judge their progress. We are given that authority of judging by collecting information, of course, about their performance. And as such, assessment needs to be a consideration for course planning since the very beginning. We shouldn't be assessing students without having carefully planned what are we going to assess them on. I mean, we're not here to tackle students, to make them fall. We are here to help them. And assessment is nothing but a good way of helping students. If you have questions, please type them on the chat box, and I will eventually read them. So let's move on. If I move here, okay. What is language assessment then? Here we go. We have types of assessments and all this display of types of assessment: achievement, norm, mastering, continuous, formative, direct, performance, subjective, checklist, impression. And each of them have a particular and a very objective oriented. We only have 50 minutes, so I wish I could go deeper into some aspects, but of course, because of time, we can't. So what we are leading now is to see the tools for assessing students. Two things again, so up to here, to have clear. Assessment of learning. End of a period, we check on what has been done to see how much students have learned. Assessment for learning looks forward and is to take the next step, the next planning, the reorganizing, the new strategies for the future. Assessment of learning, evaluation of achievement, certification, categorize the students. They are in A1, A2, B1, B2, as you or your school, your institution have decided the categories. Assessment for learning then, a look into the future. It's a long journey. We plan for a month, 2 months, a semester, a trimester, a term, a year. It's ongoing, it's descriptive, and it means that the teacher is the one who has to take the steps and make decisions. So this is just a visual input for us to remember that assessment for learning is driving ahead. Assessment for learning could be formal or informal. Let me check my time. Okay. It's continuous assessment. And remember that continuous assessment provides the teacher with information about learners in an ongoing manner. Assessment occurs during instructions. So as you deliver your lesson, as you teach, as you make groups, as you grade a paper, as you assign a task, as you ask them to do a pattern of interaction, you should be paying close attention to how they're doing, how they are performing, how much help they need. And you need to look for strategies, perhaps helping, and we are full of strategies when helping students. We grab the strong students to help the weak ones, or perhaps the other way around. It's always up to teachers. Continuous assessment, of course, means assessing aspects of learners through the course. We never stop assessing students, not necessarily with a rubric, with the scriptures, but we are always looking at them, assessing them, seeing, noticing. A good teacher always pay very, very close attention to his or her students. Why we do assessment for learning and what for? What is the idea? What is the rationale behind? Change, make sure that the students achieve their goals. So that is the aim. Absolutely, make sure that they do what they are supposed to do, that if they are supposed to master language, they are to do it. If they are supposed to write a piece of an article, so we make sure that they are able to do it. So we need to make sure that the outcome is produced by the students as expected. So here we come with a difference between lesson objective or lesson aim and a lesson outcome. Here we have some examples. Main aim, or what we basically call objective, students will be able to describe someone's routine. This is the lesson. This is the objective. My students, your students, should be able to describe someone's routines. Describe language. Part of, if we check the common European framework, we will see where this description of routines is set, perhaps in A2, in B1. All right, this is the general objective. Some smaller steps to achieve that objective is to review the simple present, to the present, maybe simple present and hobbies or sports, adverbs of frequency. Those pieces of language are not our aim, our main aim. If a student masters those pieces of language, simple present, habits, frequency, adverbs of frequency, those are only pieces that helps the metacognition, which is describe. If they are able to describe someone's routine, they might be able to describe their own routine and anybody's routine. So if you grab a book, you see that for this lesson, we have some characters, and the students rehearse and practice with those particular characters, but beyond the classroom, they go home and they should be able to describe their own routine, their father's routine, and then you incorporate those that knowledge or that ability into the classroom, and then we make a real life situation. The outcome is not the description, because this is the objective, the cognitive objective. The outcome is the piece of evidence, the production, the, the tangible products that you are going to assess with criteria. So students will write, then that you are grading a piece of writing, perhaps a paragraph, or maybe a dialogue, or maybe an interview in the way you want. But this is the outcome. So the outcome will show and prove that the objective has been achieved. And the outcome should include all these little pieces of language that we are teaching or having our students to revise and learn. Let me see if I can read something. Exactly. This is an example that the students will be able to describe through a piece of writing, because what I'm doing here is assessing the written production, but you can also assess the oral production. So they can interview someone, they can record themselves and say, well, my own routine is this and that and that. I wake up in the morning, then I move, then after, and so on. The way you plan the outcome doesn't necessarily change the main objective. You and I can both, the 50 teachers here, are told, or we want our students to be able to describe someone's routines. I will get them right. Perhaps you will get them speak. Someone will get them draw. Someone will get them write a poem. Someone will get them write a song, etc. But everybody has the same objective. Thank you. Okay, here are some examples. As I said, speaking for learning, role plays, debates, presentations, recordings, as I just said, recordings, descriptions, talk, writing projects, giving feedback, write comments, blogs, diary entries, articles, travel guides, etc., portfolios, and a million other possibilities. What is the role of a teacher? We have, I think it sounds like a cliche. Yeah, the role of a teacher is a monitor. Yeah, we motivate. We go beyond monitoring. We motivate them. We provide them with ideas, but they need to be resourceful. But if you are resourceful, your students get used to it as well. And we are feedback providers. This is a very important aspect. Exactly. Yeah, here we have another idea, a father figure. Yeah, perfect. So don't forget this feedback provider, okay? Feedback, we have to stop and talk about feedback. There is no assessment. There's no juicy, interesting, important, effective, meaningful assessment if feedback is not provided. How can I know what I'm doing fine if my teacher never tells me? How can I know what I'm not doing fine if my teacher never tells me? So feedback, we will see it. I really hope we have time. So always keep a marking system, a recording system with, in terms of organization, you need to be very organized. You need to know each one of your students. You need to record lesson one, how Felipe did, how Emily, how Marcela. We need to have a very organized recording system. Of course, criteria, rubrics, descriptors come at handy and in hand when we do feedback. And this is what I'm just said, keeping a record on your students, what by their names. I don't know if you have, some of you might have 80 or 100 students. I have 120. And sometimes I don't have their names, but I have only their initials or something, but it's my organization. So what I'm suggesting you is to keep that organization. This is rubrics. Please avoid subjective assessment. I think my student did well. I feel that he needs this. I believe to be for assessment to be valid, reliable, effective, and meaningful, we need, since the very beginning, a set of criteria. Not only you, but this criteria must be shared with the students. So the students know what is expected from them and what they need to do in order to get the 5 in fluency, the 5 in grammar and vocabulary, the 5 in interaction, what exactly they need to do and how they get there. Always collect criteria. So then it's easier for you, it's valid, reliable, and it's, I would say, fair. These are some types of assessment. I'm always need to check my time. Let me see. I think we should be done by 4:30 with time for questions. So yeah, I can do this. I'm not sure I can do it. I think if your student, if a student has all these questions, who is the one who is to help? The teacher. The students sometimes reflect, but honestly, we need to lead them and help and guide them into self-reflection. And one easy way or a starting point for reflection is self-assessment. Provide them with this checklist. Don't tell them, okay, Felipe, you need to do this. You need to talk more. You need to do. Give them this slip of paper with a checklist and ask them to check what they feel is. I like these colors. I'm sure you are familiar with them with these colors. They come from the traffic lights. So meaning red, alarm, warning, yellow, like in process, getting there, and green, of course, uh, things have been achieved. So they grab a color marker and they check with either color they feel, and it's not like saying right or wrong. It's for them to analyze their own learning. Let me read very quickly. Monitor, yeah. Okay, so here we go back to the presentation. Okay, let me see, let me move. All right, so I need you to take like a 30 seconds and ideas that you've got so far. The reason why is because at the end of this presentation, of my presentation, I will share a link with you, and you'll have 10 questions to answer, and you'll have a week to present this work. That's what I was told. And some of the ideas shared here will be absolutely useful for your answering, for your question answering. So take a couple, like 30 seconds and write your ideas down and insights, and perhaps you can share them later in our presentation. In the meantime, I read some comments on the chat box. Yeah, Luisa, you're right. Assessment of us and for learning. Just remember that assessing has purposes. All these 3 different assessments, for learning, as learning, and of learning, have different purposes. We don't use them interchangeably. Each of them has a particular reason to be. We need to gather information. We need to, the way we use the information is the key point here. Again, this is the traffic light colors. Red, I don't understand. I used to have this in my classes with my younger students, ninth grade and 10th graders. We used to have this just this bond papers, the color bond papers, and they grab when I teach them a lesson, and then at the end I said, okay, put up one color if you like, showing me your understanding. Most of it, the red one, I was like in shock. Oh my God, what I've done, what I've done wrong. And they were like, yeah, Miss, I didn't understand this, I didn't understand that. And yeah, but we have to be open to feedback. Not only we formally provide feedback, but our students also provide feedback to us. And I think it's the moment in which we say, aha, right? So perhaps it's a good idea to have the colors, the learning objectives. Again, we use envelopes. These are different ideas to keep um, the objectives and the assessment. You give them some envelopes and different cards with these three colors, and they just collect them at the end of the week or at the end of every other week. They open the envelope and count how many reds, how many it is for you. So if you see that one of your student has more red than yellow, or more green than red, then you have a pretty clear idea of what's going on. Of course, the grading book is always a good form, a good way to keep track on our students. Sometimes we use letters, perhaps qualitative form, sometimes quantity. We quantify, we perhaps check quality. Either way, both ways, fine. Feedback. There is no assessment without feedback. So briefly, we go through it. So feedback must be given through many different ways. Many. You choose not the fastest, because we shouldn't tell a student, you did okay, you did well today. Okay, well means it's a good job. What is good for you? What is well? What is not well? What do you mean by saying, oh, your work is poor? What do you mean by poor? What? Okay, you got 14 and you got 15. What is the difference between 14 and 15? It's just one mark, one credit. What is wrong? What is so? Please use feedback in a very effective way. And there are lots and lots and lots of different issues to prevent us from giving feedback. Maybe time, maybe pressure from our curriculum, too much homework, maybe students don't give us anything to give them feedback on. But let's look for information. You're required to do some feedback reading in the assignment. So I strongly suggest for you to read Haiti John. I think we will share this presentation with you. Let me move. We have already talked about this. Again, what is this? 6 out of 10. It's just a number. But we need to use Very good. What does very good mean? Well, if we have a set of criteria, very good means good command of language, good use of grammar and vocabulary. There is every rubric or rubrics have criteria, and these criteria have descriptors. So what gives information is descriptors. We need comments that help learners to move forward and make their learning taking place. It's not enough to give them a grade. Your grade is 8 out of 10, meaning what? We have seen this before. All right. Almost in time. According to this, according to our schedule today, we have a 4:20. I have to share with you some questions. The ticket out. What are you taking with you? What are the takeaway? What are you taking with you after having been part of this session? I have a Mentimeter. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Mentimeter. Hands up with Mentimeter. Yeah. Are you? Hands up. Thumbs up. Chat. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Silvita say yes. I say yes. All right. So I have as a ticket out. I need you to go to this menti.com. I will present this. We have just 2 minutes for this activity. Go to www.menti.com and use this code, please. If we can do that. And that will, this will also, I think this will be part of your task and assignments. So we can have a kind of consolidation of your ideas since we are not able to interact. So please go to www.mentimeter.com, use this code. I will see how many of you are already in the Mentimeter. You are asked to enter 3 ideas, 3 words that you take today, that you own today. Could you please do that for me? 97, 22, 75, 5. Can we do that? I need to see you here. One of you is here. Excellent. One of you. We don't have much time. We're only we're 30 teachers, more or less. I see 2. You are required to enter 3 words out of the, I don't know how many I've spoken today. Only 3 that have caused or that you are taking with you because they were meaningful, because they mean something, because for you are very important. So 3 very important words. VIW, very important words. I see 3 of you here. Where are the others? Where are the others? I need to see all of you. In 2 minutes, I'm leaving in 2 minutes and I need to see the consolidation. Yes, ready? Only 3. Are you doing the activity? May I stop sharing? Perhaps I want to see. Are you able to enter? Can you show me your thumbs up? Yes, Nada, thank you. What about Yoani, Luisa, Silvita, Betty, Lourdes, Katia? What about the others? Betty's here, Betty Segarra, hi, long time no see. Hi. Very long time no see. Well, I guess difficult to enter.
It was quite like that, but I got cut off.
Someone is talking. Someone has an open microphone. Enrique, I think is finally he's back.
Yes.
You're finally here.
Yeah,
Almost when
I
I'm
got
saying,
back.
almost when I'm saying goodbye, you just say hello.
Well, you never know. You know, technology can be your best friend
I
or your
know.
worst foe.
Of course, I know. Of course.
I was supposed to make your presentation. I guess the teachers know who you are now if they didn't know you before, but I'm going to say briefly that Olga is a language and literature teacher at Euro-American College in Lima. She's also an academic coordinator at Upright Educational Consulting Language Center. Olga holds a master's degree in teaching English as a second and foreign language. She has 18 years working as an English as a foreign language and English as a second language teacher, and has plenty of experience designing and implementing international standardized school curriculums. She's also a school consultant for the International Baccalaureate Organization, as well as a workshop leader for English B and approaches to teaching and learning. Olga is also a Cambridge speaking examiner, has worked at prestigious schools and language centers such as Fleming College, El Cultural Trujillo, and San Agustin Chiclayo. Sorry, Olga didn't say this before, but as you know, if you think that lightning struck me, well, it wasn't exactly that, but I got cut off, very rudely. So by now, I think that the teachers that are attending have a good idea about what you can do and who you are. Thank you very much. Now,
Thank you. Thank you.
we are going to send you a link so that you can make questions to Olga. Now is your opportunity to ask whatever you would like to know. So follow the link. You're going to be getting the link. You should be getting the link now to make questions.
Well, as you open the link, I see here, am I sharing, Enrique? Can you all see the Mentimeter and the ideas that the teachers have shared? Feedback, process, assessment, aid, outcome, learning, metacognition, motivation, purpose. Excellent. Yes. So these are some of your ideas. Feedback and assessment, of course, are the biggest, the two biggest words, because those are the more entered post. But I only see 6 teachers. I appreciate this, your sharing. So now it's time for you to see if you have a question and enter the question so we can answer. I'm not sure if we can answer all of them, but at least a couple of them. In the meantime, I will play a video on assessment that I found quite interesting. So let me see. I share the audio from the computer. Please, while watching the video, see if you can give us some questions. Of
teaching and learning, assessment should be planned concurrently with instruction and integrated seamlessly into the learning cycle to inform instruction, guide next steps, and help teachers and students monitor students' progress towards achieving learning goals. The vast body of literature on assessment uses a variety of terms to describe the purposes of assessment, the nature of assessment for different purposes, and the uses of information gathered through assessment. The term assessment is used to mean a set of actions undertaken by the teacher and student to gather information about student learning. Terms such as diagnostic, formative, and summative, which are used to identify the nature of assessment, have recently been supplemented with the phrases assessment for learning, assessment as learning, and assessment of learning. Using the terms formative assessment and summative assessment can give the impression that these are different kinds of assessment or are linked to different methods of gathering evidence. This is not the case. What matters is how the information is used. It is for this reason that the terms assessment for learning and assessment of learning are preferred. The essential distinction is that assessment for learning is used in making decisions that affect teaching and learning in the short-term future, whereas assessment of learning is used to record and report what has been learned in the past. In short, the nature of the assessment is determined by what the information is to be used for. Assessment for the purpose of improving student learning is seen as both assessment for learning and assessment as learning. As part of assessment for learning, teachers provide students with descriptive feedback and coaching for improvement. As essential steps in assessment for learning, teachers need to plan assessment concurrently and integrate it seamlessly with instruction. Share learning goals and success criteria with students to ensure that students and teachers have a common and shared understanding of these goals and criteria as learning progresses. Gather information about student learning before, during, and at or near the end of a period of instruction using a variety of assessment strategies and tools. Use assessment to inform instruction, guide next steps, and help students monitor their progress towards achieving their learning goals. Teachers engage in assessment as learning by helping all students develop their capacity to be independent, autonomous learners who are able to set individual goals, monitor their own progress, determine next steps, and reflect on their thinking and learning. Assessment of learning is used to record and report what has been learned in the past. It occurs at or near the end of a period of learning and may be used to inform further instruction. The information gathered for the purpose of assessment of learning or evaluation is used by the teacher to summarize learning at a given point in time. This summary is used to make judgments about the quality of student learning on the basis of established criteria, to assign a value to represent that quality, and to support the communication of information about achievement to students themselves, parents, teachers, and others.
Okay, I have some questions on the Google form. One, I think I can only answer one because of time. Time is not our friend anymore, it's our enemy. The question I chose to be answered is, how can we assess our pupils during this pandemic? I want to briefly show you, if I can, screen here. Let me make this. Okay. If I go quickly to I think I'm sharing everything right now, but that's a matter. I have nothing to hide. So I use Jamboard, I use quizzes, I use Kahoot, I use, if I go here, just to show you, my students do portfolios. This is a very interesting tool that it's always there, and maybe we don't see them or we don't use it, but let me see. Again, those Google tools are quite interesting. I want to show you how I assess my students. For instance, am I sharing? Please just do something. I'm just getting, am I sharing? Can anyone tell me or show me? Yes. Okay, when I see this flickering, that means that yes. Okay, this is Jamboard. Each of my students, for instance, each of them have their own Jamboard. I type their names and they work on each paper. Here, for instance, they are working on their favorite plays. These are young kids. They are from 9th grade, so that they are like 14, 15. I have their names here. They already have the criteria, what they need to do. This is another student, and Andrea, this is Machu Picchu. This is another student, and they work individually. Sometimes they work, as you see, this is an individual work. Sometimes they work in groups, and you can monitor them. You can monitor them outside Zoom. I have some writing, for instance. These are our students, are like older students. They are doing writing, the outlining process of an essay. Here they are analyzing speeches. They are doing Obama speeches. So use Jamboard, use quizzes, use Mentimeter, use Kahoot, use portfolios. If you see, I'm sorry, I don't have much time, but I promise if I'm invited again, I show you all the other ways that I have to record my students' progress. I also use Flipgrid. I don't know if you are familiar with Flipgrid, but I promise that I will send you a list of tools, online websites that you can use. Flipgrid for recording. You have, it's like Facebook, but for only presentations. Your students can record a minute or 2 minute presentation about themselves, the topic you are working. And there are plenty of ways for you to assess your students. I need to share something with you, which is the link for your task. Am I right, Enrique? I have to share something with the teachers today.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And with that link, I think you'll be send an email and inform that you have the period of time you have. I think it's a week to solve the questions, and then so you can get the
certificate.
The certificate. This is the Google form. This is the link for the questioning, I think. Let me see. I need to make sure I'm sharing with you the right link and not something that doesn't belong to. Here it is. Here we go. This is the exam, and there we go. I just posted in the chat box, so you all have it. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope to see you again somewhere else live. Thank you, Betty. Thank you. The claps, surely enough, the claps go for all of you. Thank you, Silvita. Thank you, Narda. Thank you, Katia. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you very much. Thank you, Almara, and really, really pleased to have been with you today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Enrique. Now you are the host. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck. We only have 5 weeks for the school year to be over and the teaching to be over until 2021. Thank you very much. Bye.
Right. I believe Enrique is off again, and I'm going to share my today's presentation with you. Let me see. Good. Right. So I want to thank Olmara for this invitation. I'm going to be with you in 3 sessions. So please, I want you to put up me. And technically, well, this is just a bit of me. I thanks Olmara and other the guest speakers with this quite important and their topics and relevant for these days during the lockdown. One of the benefits of the lockdown that we had the opportunity to attend different conferences from different places in Sri Lanka, New York, in London, Manchester, here in Bolivia. Wherever you are, you can attend a lot of these kind of webinars, which is, I believe this is one of the benefits, right? Being connected. And we hope it continues the connection when the lockdown finishes and the pandemic is over. And it's interesting to be here because today is the assessment day, if you have seen this. And basically today we're going to talk about redesigning rubrics, right? And I'm going to be back a little of what Olga said about assessment, because I need to link with her presentation and then make the connection with mine, which is the conclusion of today's reference in different places. And when we say redesigning, it's not that we're going to do it again. It's like we're going to try to see if we can reuse them in different purposes, but having the idea of assessment process, right? And technically, when we believe and when we say that the assessment is an important role, because we assess all the time, but some teachers, unfortunately, they misguide and they have this misconception what assessment is. Technically, assessment is what we do in class, right? It's a day to day. So every single day we assess, even unconsciously we're assessing. So it's not necessary to be conscious to assess a learner. It's like you grab your piece of paper and start noting or writing down what every student does or doesn't. This is not assessment technically, right? And this is like being stressed out, getting some scores into the file of numbers or letters if you prefer working with primary. So when we talk about assessment, as you heard, and it's the only activities what we do in class. That's why we say there is an unconscious process sometimes. And sometimes when we are maybe at home, we are trying to remember, we bring our memories back, our lessons. We says, how smart was Pedro? I never thought about that question. It was nice. So in that way, we consider that assessment is like giving us some hints, some ideas on how to perform our teaching development afterwards. It's not just scoring or just giving it a mark. It's trying to see how suitable this information is for us to change, to renew, or to readapt our teaching purposes in class with the benefit of our learner. So technically, this information used as feedback is important, right? As Black and Williams said. And but it's absolutely important to make a clear distinction between assessment and evaluation, because I heard some teachers unconsciously, and even because along this year I've been observing some lessons like these digital lessons, and some of the teachers says, today I'm going to evaluate you, okay? Please close your books, enter to this website, and you will have an exam. I'm going to evaluate you today. And what I trying to say that maybe this is like let's say it's like a transfer from Spanish to English, and as this is kind of a error, right? We call this the wrong transfer of using English and Spanish, which is wrong. And we carry assessment in class, right? And technically, where we say that we use this to diagnose things, what happens, and we use it as a feedback. And but on the other side, evaluation is broader. It's like the influence what we do not in class technically. We is saying that learning process, everything that goes around is that with syllabus design, with course design, materials, methodology, teachers development from in class, and also the assessment in class. So I do believe maybe you have this criteria well clear, that's quite clear. But technically, some teachers, they start confusing this, or they still confuse this with the idea of the word, because we don't evaluate in class. What we do is we assess in class. But you may say, yeah, I listen to some webinars for Cambridge, or they say when teacher has to evaluate. Yes, when we say we evaluate students because we are not in the class, so you can be outside the class, you have all the students' records there, and you start gathering information doing something. That's what we call evaluation, because but you are not in class because you are having other things to analyze. But when you're inside the classroom, this kind of box of teaching, and what we do in class is assessment technically, right? So you put one step ahead and it's outside your class and you start analyzing this. You are evaluating the student's performance as well. But when you just are inserted in the class, we assess the student, we do not evaluate, right? So some teachers got confused with this word technically. So when we say like, yes, in few words, the assessment refers to the different ways of collecting information, right? Well, students' progress and achievement, your class convention, right? So class convention, when you're inside the class and you are with your students, well, right now we're saying we inside the class because we are yes, face-to-face our students, right? There is no inside the class, technically, right? But we assess when the students are working, when you watch them using their microphone, they speak, when they are, yes, you are watching, they are working their workbooks or they are just working with their faces, their participation, I don't know, but this is a kind of connection in class. It can be called assessment. And evaluations conducted by high authorities on the other side. Remember, in Peru, we used to have the national evaluation process for the PISA exams, and they have to sit for 3-4 hours students on language, mathematics, science, geography, and social, I do believe. And they have to get this information they take to the Ministry of Education. They analyze the results, and according to the results, they have to redesign their educational policy. They redesign the books and materials, content, and whatever they think they need to do it. And then we consider evaluation, because it's bigger, it's broader. And assessment is smaller, it needs just a time, a period, but it's a class convention in class. So, set things clear, we have to go back again. So the type of assessment we're going to reduce just into 3 out of the 100 we have. And just to be familiar and friendly definitions with the assessment, I do believe there are others, like the summative assessment and formative assessment. And of course, in some way, they are quite similar. I believe the authors, they claim to coin new words so that they can be renewed and having this done. But we can just summarize the informal assessment, formal and self-assessment. You were listening to this. And we know that informal assessment is collecting information, but in classroom conditions, right? So this is a normal classroom condition. Now we have add a word that is called normal classroom conditions, right? I do remember when I was studying Leicester, so they say a word can have semantically can change everything in English, especially in teaching. And it says, well, we say that assessment is classroom conditions, right? But now we have add a word that's normal. When we say it's in a normal classroom condition, is when you are delivering your lesson. So, okay, students, hello, good to see you. Open up your books, let's sing along, let's jam, let's play, let's have this quiz. Okay, working pairs. I want you to copy this from the sector, etc. This is a normal classroom condition, right? So, and this is called by some people as continuous assessment. And the informal word is that is you don't have a process, a technical process, I would say, right? Because we do it informally. And then we have the formal assessment is now it is under testing conditions, right? Which has to be formal. It means that you guarantee the process of the assessment is valid because you know that the assessment, the test should have validity, reliability, right? So you make sure that the process of your exam or your formal assessment need to be done in certain time, with certain elements like your assessment tools, your quiz and exam, I do not, but other things maybe. And then the student need to be sitting in a row, etc., etc. But even though it used to be in a normal classroom condition, right? So in normal setting arrangements, right now it's like an online. So also some teachers, they test the students online. They say, I've heard they use Socrates, which is an extraordinary tool to assess learners. Kahoot also used to assess them in a friendly way, but absolutely we do not know if what their results are valid because you don't know who is behind or next to the learner. But yes, technically the definition help us a lot because this is a formal assessment when you test a student, and this is under testing conditions, what we're saying, right? And then is the self-assessment, and you have clear with Olga's lovely presentation about the can-do statements. It's a wonderful, nice of the students need to reflect on their own learning. No, the question is how mature they are to put a tick the right place they consider, and especially the age as well. I've seen some books from different publishers that from the number one in first grade, they have these happy faces or it's not so happy faces. I need to think, I learned this, I know how to do this, which is great. And this is in general the assessment, right? I need to time out this, right? Sorry. And, and in a general way, we have here just the parallel is like between assessment and formal and informal assessment. And if we see this is like the test examinations, the formal, informal is normal classroom and teaching learning activities. But then you have a word that is homework task. And I've seen some teachers, they like grading, scoring, homework tasks, which is not, I dare to say this is not valid because we don't know exactly if the students done their homework or somebody else or parents, friends, or I don't know, which is, it doesn't need to be a score. You give just like a record of they done it or not, a happy face or well done, excellent, great. But some teachers do like scoring, which is not correct because maybe they scored, get the highest one, and the one of the exams they fail, which doesn't show, no, it's not the mirror of what they have learned. So technically, homework shouldn't be a score. And the marking with the formal assessment, the learner receives grades. Then informal assessment, you just keep records what they done. And you see the purpose of that is to assess different way of abilities, proficiency, the achievement, the progress, and so on. And then we say the informal assessment, the feedback for the teacher to help us improve the procedures on different materials and so on. This is just a short review what you have listened and what I give you, right? To connect with the design of the rubrics. So going into our field and to own purpose of being here, we use rubrics to assess student learning outcomes. And basically, outcome is when students produce, right? It's the definition of what students produce. And the outcome can be even aside if it's, when you start, you set a word or you give some instructions, the student stare at you, like this. So this is not an outcome. I don't understand what you're saying, or maybe you're using the wrong word, or maybe this word you have introduced the days before, and the student maybe didn't pay attention. In some way, the outcome is not always something concrete. It can be just something that even you can perceive. But remember, because some people believe the outcome is something that you can, it's a concrete evidence, which is not always concrete evidence, right? So if we talk about rubrics, we say that scoring a guy with criteria, and if we make a parallel and a similar with teachers' criteria, I heard some of the coordinators, friend of mine, says my teachers don't have criteria. Because criteria comes with experience, because it's to make a decision, right? And basically that decision can be positive or negative with your experience And most of the time experience is like a balloon. And this balloon is like you have inserted this air of called when you succeed or you fail. So your experience contains failure, not when you, and also when you have succeeded. And technically, because the experience tell us if we are going the right track or not. So in terms of rubrics is the criteria for evaluating students' work in their relation to one or more programs, right? So not necessarily what we consider is like one side of the road, as some people say. And so what you can say what are rubrics, right? We use them, right, to see if the students have met what we consider, right? That we achieve the goal when people say, and also with your personal or with your peers. And typically include specific observable and measurable descriptors. And I would like to say that, and I'll, sorry. Okay, good. So I would like to say that was something is observable. As I mentioned before, the outcomes are not something concrete, because by observation you get some information which is valid for your assessment purpose, right? And and the measurement is like you need to know exactly how to catalog this action in different levels. And the descriptors is what you consider how you describe this item of evaluation. And because what is good for you is not good for me, what is right for you is maybe it's wrong for somebody. And the descriptors clarify exactly what they need to be, right? And also is define expectations. What we see my expectation is like we have positive expectations in language, and also we have negative expectations as well. But technical expectation is what you consider if the students have achieved the goal. And and basically most of teachers, for example, at the beginning of the year, when they try to assess if the students have some information and they elaborate an exam, and they call this like diagnostic test, or some people call in Spanish la prueba de entrada. And they wrongly they design an exam, because if they are going to be, if you say, no, they need to know present tense, past tense, because they started last year, and you elaborate an exam based on present tense and past tense. And most of students fail this kind of diagnostic tests. And teachers with this answer or these results, they do nothing, because the next day they start the unit number 1 of the book, or they start doing what they already have written on their syllabus or their units, whatever they have the information. The question is it valid to assess that with the students knowing that they will fail? Which is true. It's like if I were the coordinator of the institution, and I tell my teacher, says, okay, before you enter to your class, I need to assess you on teaching methods, right? So you will have an exam on methodology. I need to answer these 5 questions. Number 1, will you please compare the audiolingual approach and the CLT? Number 2, what is TBL? How can we use it? 3, etc., etc. Of course, my teachers will fail, because maybe they don't have they don't take it for granted the right information. They have it in their heads. They have some ideas. Of course, they have been told what they're going to be assessed, which is not valid my exam, because I didn't tell them in advance what is going to be assessed. And technically, I'm not pretty sure if asking them about TBL is going to be useful, because we're working in primary and our students have low levels. So how can it be useful to use TBL in primary with low level as well? And or if I am working in the baccalaureate program, I ask a question about will you please give me a lesson of, I don't know, this like using puppets, but which is considerable not relevant and it's not being fair. So if the student, I do recommend my teachers, they need to grab the students' book, the teacher's guides, what's coming in unit number 1 and in unit number 2. So if unit number 1 is coming comparatives and unit number 2 is coming superlatives, I don't believe they're going to be assessing past tense or present perfect what they've done the year before, because it's not useful for my students or my students. So most of the teachers say, okay, what do you need? So what do your students need to know before coming to this adventure of new words, new grammar? And most of the was is adjectives. Okay, so why don't you assess on adjectives first? See how many adjectives they know. So categorize the adjectives. So by assessing them, we are giving them like a recalling the information they will use. And this is valid information because we're going to use the next class adjectives to introduce comparative superlative. This is what we consider validity information. It's reliable because we can use this information and we cannot waste time assessing things that they should know, but when we're not going to use anymore. So the connection of learning is broken sometimes. So I strongly recommend, you may need to look up what is coming in your books and need to see what is you need to know before entering to those areas. And so what rubrics consist? And we have different type of rubrics because I selected these, holistic scales, and we have checklists, rating scales, and analytic scales, which are the four the most famous in the EAD area. And not also the EAD area, right? Many areas even for training for business. And so holistic scales, checklists, rating scales, and analytic scales. So holistic scales, right? Holistic scales is like okay, let's see. So when you rate, to say single score based on a judgment, and holistic comes from, there is a method, right? It's called a holistic approach. And the holistic approach says that in terms of teaching, the holistic approach says that if your mind is not connected with your heart or your soul, the student won't learn. You have to teach the whole as a person. So we don't consider just intelligence, no, because the cognitive approach says you have to get the students using their brains, and like the natural approach, the way they learn the first language. Well, the holistic approach considers the human body as a central, a core part, and which is not connected what you have in your head. What I say in your head is not your brain, it's what you're thinking, and it's connected to your heart. And so it's not a balance of the person, and maybe the learner is not prepared. And I do believe Krashen called this the affective filter, right? Because if the person is nervous about, or the person has a problem before entering into the class, just in case, how many students maybe have lost their parents or some relatives, and they before that you can see them in class. You've been told in advance that, I don't know, Pepe Miranda's father has passed out. So you may say, oh, what is he doing here, right? Because I don't know if he's connected, but maybe the students like in a bubble, and maybe my lessons distract my learner. So you are cooperating, of course. But in the learning process, you can have an idea that maybe the student is out for that moment, because maybe some students, you can see their body there in front of your camera, but their minds somewhere else. It happens, right? And the holistic approach take to consider this. You have to assess the learning different angles, right? So the holistic scale allows to rate a design, a single score based on an overall judgment, a general judgment of students' work, not being so specific, just it's a global idea what you need to be with that learner. And also this gives you an idea if the learner has achieved or not. And we have this, if you have here, even is when you want to assess writing, you have here this kind of, this scale. Remember, this is a holistic scale, right? So you got an excellent writer, it's like a level 6, and you have an essay clearly say a position, provide support for the position, writes a counter argument, objection, and refuse it, and so on. And it's just generalization, right? So they don't land on some specific points, right? And sometimes you may see that the grammar is being not left behind, so you don't know exactly. But it depends also what you want to assess. I'm not saying this is an excellent holistic example, but I've taken this to show you, right? That is quite general, and it works for people who love scoring that way, not in a general way, because they believe that the fluency is it's much important than assessing accuracy. So that's why it says the writing process, right? They're assessing different elements. And of course, you can elaborate all type of holistic scale, but having in mind that this general idea and not being so detailed, argumentatively talking. And also, when we go to checklists, and you heard that again, because Olga mentioned that, I says checklists and had been used a lot. And we have this just a way out. It's like to have two doors, the selection of the door, red or the blue one, and which way you need to take. So that the dichotomy of this is just to choose just two sides, which is a yes or no, or met or not met, what you consider, right? Which is easy to use. Technically, you just tick, 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 and that's all. Which is fascinating for teachers when they are busy. But we would say that the drawback of this is that they don't provide substantive information regarding the performance level. There is just one sentence. It is the learner has accomplished that item or not. We don't know for sure if they have accomplished 100%, 50, 10%. We only have to say if they done it or not. With the sometimes teachers say, yes, but he's on his way. But if I put no, the parents will criticize me. If I tick on yes, I'm not being so fair and honest, so what can I do? This is what this dilemma we have all the time when we use checklists, right? Which I'm not saying that it's wrong, because they were for concrete evidence. And this is an example of when this interactive presentation checklist. And this is what for the students on assessment, we consider like a self-assessment. So the student can assess himself using this checklist, like they use my time, even place completely all section of the presentation, yes or no. And also you can use the same, and you can compare with the learner and says, show me what you believe you have done properly, and I will show you, I consider. So, and let's discuss, let's talk about this. Of course, in a parents meeting, this is useful, right? And also you can take this as general information, and even you can follow statistics as well, like 20% of my students think that way, and 80% on the other side, etc. Because I use this easy to use in class, and also for class observation. For example, if you want to observe a teacher, if you're a coordinator, you can use these checklists, right? Elena Campos, 5th grade English, for example. And the class observation is using Zoom or Google Meet. What you can say, you just cross out. And you say the class starts and finishes on time, yes or no. But you may say, but what is on time? On time is if you say this, just the class starts at 10 o'clock, you need to give them 5 minutes. I don't know. This depends on the school's policy. Then the use of materials like props in general, puppets and so on. The goal, the use of camera and microphone, right? And when I say promote the correct use of camera and microphone among students, because even though we need to ask learners to activate their cameras and they don't do it, some teachers just give up. In English, it's necessary because remember, we're assessing, right? Constantly. And you know when the student is there. And of course, they don't want to turn their cameras, or maybe they say they have problems with internet and so on, but this is a matter of knowing your class. Then pacing your level of English according to the class. And I might say that sometimes the technology reduces the time of feedback. If I ask a student a question, so I have to give them more time than necessary, because as in a kind of face-to-face class, because sometimes you don't know if the delivery of the answer will take 5 or 6 seconds. Sometimes when you say a question, okay, Carlos, please, what is it right? Tell me number 1. And you're just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you start asking, please, Carlos, so Carlos start talking over you. So it means that the resection of yours speaking has a delay on the line. So Carlos already listened, and then when he activates his camera, his microphone, and takes time, and then to reproduce an answer back also takes time. So imagine how much time you dedicate to this answer, right? So that's the idea of even using oral communication on the lesson, listen attentively to students, and so on, about accurate and ongoing feedback. So the checklist give us this clarity in yes or no. And some people may say, okay, can I write down on comments? So what I should write? Well, it also depends what you consider. You can say it's maybe a possible assumption, what is not, or how can it be done correctly, right? Which is interesting to analyze this checklist. And what about the rating scale? So we have seen the holistics, then we have the checklist, now the rating scales. So they identify a range of performance without specific descriptors. There are no descriptors here. So yes, you need to categorize if they have exceed expectation, meet expectation, or below expectation. But can we change this? Yes, we can change, like giving them a score, like 1, 2, 3. So for this exceed expectation, you give 3 points. Meet expectation, like 2 points, and below expectation 1. And you work with primary students of first grade, second grade in public education or private education according to Peruvian standards. You can put A, B, or C. But once again, right, it identifies a range of performance. So technically, it provides information, but now we have to say the drawback is doesn't provide also, right, sufficient information for rating the score consistently. So once again, it's like the checklist. Give us a certainty of being right with our assessment purpose, but maybe we're not. Remember, we are humans, so we can mistake, right? This is part of the learning, right? So this is an example of a rating scale, right? And it's like a computer program. It's like below expectations, 1 point, mid expectation exceeds, or you have some comments here. So and you have to clarify what is exceed expectation, like it's above expectation, steady the outcome, etc., etc. And it's like, and you may wonder right now, it's like having the checklist extended, instead of writing yes or no, now you say I add yes, almost no, right? Which is that is your rating, because when you rate, you give a score, right? But this score needs to be clarified. What is 1? What is 2? What is 3? Right? When yes or no, you don't give a score. You say, yeah, if the student have accomplished the task. In this case, you just, you score, because maybe for testing purposes, you need this. Because at the end of this, the student need to have a score, technically talking. And it is useful, for example, for oral presentations, because they need to have a score, and you have certain scales, right, a criteria. But sometimes it is just, but you may wondering right now what the student says, but teacher, what is meet expectation? So how do I know? So what is your criteria? Or in fact, as a teacher, why do I have two as two and not three? Because I consider it done correctly. I do say that this is kind of subjective thing, because now the student may complain, I teacher, you are wrong. I believe I exceed expectation, but I need, and I deserve a 3. But he says, no, you are not right. You say a 2. But now this is like going into a trial. It says my word against yours. So what I see clearly. So this is one of the drawbacks of the things, technically talking. And then we go to analytic scales. And you may see the analytic scales are the answers for all the drawbacks we've been referring to. And they articulate the levels of the student's development, right? The individual criterion in general. So you can score there, you give them consistencies, and you give them things so they can be read, and they can be understood by the learner, so the students can clarify and see what he's done right or wrong. And technically, it's like the adding the best of the old rubric selection to create something that is, we are not, I don't dare to say that it's perfect, right? But for some it is. And this is an example, right? Analytic scale rubric for evaluating a portfolio. You listen to the lovely Olga talking about portfolios, but how do we assess portfolio? I love your main cover. I love the handwriting, the drawings, which is subjective. You want to be objective, so a rubric would give you a clear view on what you're trying to assess. But remind this, rubrics only work when you give students beforehand, not while the process of they are being assessed and not at and after that. So the rubrics is also guidance for learners. So the student need to have these before. If I want to elaborate a portfolio, so I need to see what my teacher wants from me to do it. So I will see this, the requirements, portfolio requirements, technology, artifacts, organization, reflection, so on. But if I do not give my learner the rubrics, like these analytic rubrics, like this, so the learner will believe what he's doing is right. When you receive a portfolio and you assess a portfolio, we say, I'm sorry, this is not what I expected. So once again, think about the negative washback effect on the learner. Just teacher, but I did it all night, I did it with my friends, my parents helped me a lot, and so teacher, but it works nothing? So I'm not saying it works nothing, but it's not, it doesn't accomplish my assessment standards. So that is wrong, because it's not being fair. So we have to deliver this beforehand. It's, I believe, 2 weeks before, if we consider it's what is it, the end of the year product. So you need to give this, the day that you produce the task, you have to deliver them. So students will know what they need to do, what is being fair in education, right? It's not whiskey, sorry. So technically, after delivering this analytic scale, you need to explain also to the learner what is for, what is good, what is fair, what is poor. So the student need to say, okay, that's what I want. I mean, I'm missing the words. Okay, good. So it's not like a pendulum or just like handing over their heads to trying to slip their throats. Not. It's like giving some hints, like treasure, no, like a treasure hunt. So you have to go this way, have to do this, which is students will love and be fascinated. And of course, if the student failed or maybe didn't accomplish with the task, it can be helpful for you to back up your teaching with parents, because you can tell your parents is you give the kid, you give the learner or the teen, or in a university, you work in university, you says, I gave you this 2 weeks before and you didn't accomplish this part, and this part. So the parent will say, oh my God, this is true. This is not teacher's fault. That says you given my kid exactly what to do, and sorry, it says, right? So, which is interesting to have this, right? Because you give them just the day they're going to be assessed. That is not fair. This is like you, like I saying, right? Like I assess you without telling you what you need to do, which is crucial and negative. Uh, just to somebody's writing me here that we have easy ways to write down this. This is true. It's quite difficult to draw all the criteria and the descriptors, right? So I'm going to show with you, I'm going to share it with you. Maybe some of you know this, but this is, I do believe it's a friendly way of elaborating rubrics, even the name Ruby Star. And this is creating rubrics for project-based learning activities. And you just click on this Ruby Star and you have in Spanish and English as well. And you can customize your rubrics depending on what you want to assess. You want this oral projects like class debates, like oral presentation. This is common in English right now, or making a poster and again a brochure. You work in science, building a structure. No, that is if you have like you work with art, I don't know, this mural, this is making a mask. You're a music teacher, it's like I like composition, and if you work related to reading, it's like independent reading elementary. So you have customized this, and technically what you have to do is just register, but only for the moment you're going to write down your rubric, right? The salutation, your Mr., Mrs., Doctor, first name, your surname, and the title is making a poster. The zip code is because this is in the United States, you need to write down or type down as 99995 times. And then you will get to this. And you may see that you have 4321. They give you the numbers there. And please choose the categories. It's like, sorry, you just click on them and you have the category according to the item you want. No, for example, if you wanted like puppet show or storytelling, and when you click on this, you will have all the criterions and the rubrics will immediately be stated like this. And you can download using Excel, and even you can recustomize. If you want to use letters, you can use A, D, A, B, and C. And also you can use this easy, right? This is kind of friendly way of administering like rubrics, right? And this is part of your week work to elaborate using this website, RubyStar. And that's all for today. And we try to encounter the idea of assessment, something that you can use these days in order to close our kind of weird year of teaching. But if we use rubrics, I do believe it is going to be fair enough for the students to see if they pass to the next level of English or they have accomplished the competency, right? And and you can use also exams, yeah, but remind that sometimes we are not with them, but using rubrics, this is part, something that we can observe, we can see, and we can value. Well, thanks so much for listening to me. I hope you have some questions. I need to see. So let me, maybe, I don't know if Enrique is there, so he can.
Yes, I'm here, Julio.
Okay, go.
Hello, good afternoon. I seem to have a gremlin in my system because it cuts me off in the worst possible moment. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Julio, because you're giving us a wide idea about assessment and particularly rubrics. When we grade exams, well, the most difficult thing is to keep being objective. And one of the best ways to ensure that we have more objectivity is through rubrics. So I think that this is a great contribution to our fellow teachers that were so kind to be with us today. So thank to you, thank to Omara, thank to all of you teachers that have been with us. Now, we are going to send you the link again so that if you have any questions for Julio, you can send it. Okay, here is the link. So send your questions and Julio will answer them. Apparently you were very clear and nobody has any questions.
I have a question here. It says that how to assess in a virtual session. And it depends on many things. Technically, it depends on the school or university policy. Some universities have their own assessment way. They have their own software. But I do believe that even though you have a software, and I used to work with Universidad La Rioja, a software that is Respondus, that they control the screen, and even you have to just move around your camera to see if somebody else is there. Even though you follow this process, but when they start exams, nobody knows if that your friends entered and start helping you. I do believe also depends on the time of assessment, because we cannot leave the assessment for the end of the period. Like that. So we used to have like summative assessment as the main part. What I consider formative assessment, it should be stronger right now, and even the informal way. We have to use radical changes to our teaching, because technology may be the angel to communicate, but also could be the devil to assess. So here I have another question. It says, how many rubrics are important to consider we want to develop all the abilities? The number of rubrics is also depends on the number of scoring and the criteria. You have, for example, one oral presentation, let's say, and you need to assess 4 things. So 4 things is like the standard process, like, for example, clear speech, tone of voice, use of props, or even posture or eye contact. So that even the 4 is a nice standard. You cannot assess more, because you have to have a clear pattern on what you're seeing. You cannot assess like 10 items, which is wrong. The student is going to perform maybe in 2 minutes. 10 items cannot be can be wrongly assessed. So 4 is the average, right? In terms of the scriptors criteria and this, right? And another question, or I consider, it says, how can I do the assessment easy and memorable for my students? And I was listening the other day in TESOL, that the best way of assessing students when they are not, it means that some students need to be told that they are being assessed, so they participate. but unfortunately, so the assessment is from the day one until the last day of our lesson. I got a friend of mine who's working in a high school and says, I got 20 lessons with my students. One learner didn't show up 19 days. The last day he set up for the exam and he aced. He got the highest score because he's near native. So what can I do? I says, support your informal assessment, because it doesn't matter how much language the student knows, because he can pass the exam, but he was in your class, or he wasn't, he didn't want to participate. So I believe the informal assessment need to be stronger. Okay, formative assessment. And because we have this kind of students sometimes they want to do anything and only wait for the last time to have the highest score, and this is quite interesting to have. Well, once again, thanks so much for being here. I enjoy also working with Olmara and with Olga. My pleasure, Enrique. Long time to see you. Yes, we used to work hand to hand. Yes, so thank you for being my host.
Okay, thank you very much to all teachers that were with us this afternoon. You are great because you keep trying to improve, making tremendous efforts to be better every time. Now, remember that next Saturday, we will meet again at 3:30 in the afternoon. So you are all invited. The links will be sent by mail to each one of you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Julio, and bye-bye.